Hi, everybody. This is a special episode tonight. So I'm Carmela, and I'm here with my baby girl, Jeannie. Hi,
Hi.
sweetheart. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Tonight is our 30th episode. Do you believe that? 30.
Unreal.
Amazing.
It seems
And
like
of
it was
course,
yesterday we started.
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, we decided to make tonight the podcast for the Mr. McMahon documentary or whatever you want to call it on Netflix. And it's funny because like Jeannie said, it seems like yesterday, and it's like amazing that we've actually been able to come this far. I want to say thank you, first of all, to everybody who does listen.
Yes.
I've gotten good feedback. Jeannie's gotten good feedback. We've been getting emails off and on, which is good. Um, Also, before we go, we should maybe make our announcements. Okay, we have this Saturday's podcast is going to be Bay Ragney, and he is going to announce, if I'm not mistaken, one person for the con and possibly a match if it's
Yeah.
carved in stone. So we're very excited to find that out. So that'll be May 3rd, and that will be of 2025. Jeannie and I and our friends have already purchased tickets. Okay, they are selling, so make sure that you purchase your ticket. Just go to 2300arena.com and you purchase whatever you need. They have a button for insurance, a button for refunds if you get the insurance, all that stuff. So it's all right there. If I could do it, anybody could do it. It's real easy. Okay. Um, and also, don't forget to sign the petition for the banner. I
Yes.
don't know exactly how far we are right now. Do you, Jeannie?
I don't. I haven't seen an update as of yet.
Okay, well, we'll ask Bay what the update is for when the
Yeah.
update comes, and we'll put that up. But please, okay, it's really super important that we get this banner hung. Okay, it means the world to the people that are involved. And I know that if Larry Winters were here, he'd be happy too. And he'd be saying, I could just hear him, he'd be saying, oh, what's the matter with you, man? Can't you get more people? Like, why can't you do that with his little $100 bill up in the air,
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk about, again, I want to clarify what I might have said wrong earlier. Thank you, Jeannie, for reminding me. Yes, I said I was there. I definitely was there. Not with Vince McMahon, like I said. I never had many interactions with him. I will tell you one interaction I had with Vince McMahon Jr. was when my mom passed away. We had tried so hard to get Bruno to call her because at that time we didn't have Bruno's phone number. And we wanted to get Bruno and a lot of the other wrestlers to call her, and they did. Bruno, we were having a hard time getting a hold of. And my ex husband, Paul, knew somebody in a ticket agency in Philadelphia called Sherry's. And he knew Vince McMahon Sr. So Vince McMahon was told to, find Bruno, ask Bruno to call my mother, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, Bruno didn't call till my mom was buried. And I answered the phone and he said, oh, can I talk to Celeste? And I got really nasty with him. And I said, yeah, she's at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery. Why don't you go talk to her there? And I hung up on him, which wasn't very nice, but I felt like I had been kind of dissed. So then I went to Hamburg Arena one night and Junior was coming out when they wore those orange or yellow jackets. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he came out and I introduced myself to him. And I told him, I said, tell your father, I said, a little too little and a little too late. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I explained it to him. He goes, well, I have nothing to do with that. I said, no, you don't. I said, your father does. So if you could just give him the message, I'd appreciate it. And that is honestly the only interaction I've ever had with Vince McMahon, senior or junior. Okay. But anyway, we're going to talk about this. Now, I wrote down some notes about memories that I have and things that I wanted to talk about. The intro to this, I put down as mastermind or madman. As a mastermind, he definitely is a mastermind. This man created what could potentially or is potentially the most incredible wrestling organization the world has ever seen,
Yes.
bar none. And he did. He did it. He did it. No doubt about it. His father, of course, started it. But once Vince Jr. got a hold of it, he just went completely crazy, and it showed. Okay. Um, Madman, yeah, I think he is a little bit of a madman too, because in the documentary, the series that we watched, it said that he was molested as a child, and
By
he
his
didn't
mother.
by his mother, yeah, and he didn't
Incest,
even
yeah.
meet his father till he was 12 years old. He thought his last name was the name of the stepfather who beat him on a regular basis. Um, and when he met his father, he kind of just was so excited. He ran up to him, wanted this big hug, and all he got was like a pat on the back. Um, the funny thing is that later on in life, when Shane grew up and he was a man, he said on the documentary as well that he had done so many things to try to please his father. And when he got to that point where he did all this crazy jumping off of these big things and literally hurting himself, all he wanted was for his father to be proud of him and to give him a hug. And it took that long for his father to actually give him a hug. When you are a survivor of abuse of any kind, okay, you have choices in life. It's a horrible, horrible thing to happen to somebody. But when you are a survivor, I am a survivor. When you
Me
are a
too.
survivor, okay, you do have choices. I am a survivor of being hit constantly, and I am a survivor of molestation. So I did, I did when I got older and my kids were little, I did hit them. I'm not going to lie about that. But then I realized one day, you know what? I don't have to do this just because my mother did. And I stopped. I got help and I stopped. And there was help. Vince could have gotten help even back then, okay? Or as he grew in life. He didn't have to take out what he did on the wrestlers, which I think he did. He took out what he took out on the wrestlers, especially the women wrestlers, okay? But we're going to get into that a little bit at a time. Bear with me for reading um, my notes here because there's so much.
Well, I think the one thing, is two facts can be true. You know, did he, once he got full control of the back then WWF from his father, um, he did turn it into what it is today and what wrestling is today, worldwide, globally. He
Yes.
did that. Um, was he also a horrible human being throughout that journey? Yeah, yeah. So, for him, for me, in my opinion, for him, it was all about power, ego, money.
Narcissistic all the way,
Yeah,
okay? He even screwed his own father. Now, his
yeah,
father was also known for screwing people. And I said before when we do our documentary and we do our tribute to Bruno, I will explain how Vince Sr. screwed Bruno. Um, but Vince Sr. didn't want the territories to be spread out. He wanted to stay in his own territory.
right,
And, Vince Jr. apparently said to him, yeah, we will, no problem. And then one day he showed up in another part of the country. And his father was none too happy about that.
right.
But at that point, it just started an avalanche of egotistical, narcissistic stuff that just never stopped. Okay. Um, I was listening to what Phil Muchnick was saying, and I agreed with him 100%. Like, he had huge balls, and he didn't care what he said, and he was right. I agreed with 100% of what he said. A lot of people don't believe that, but it is what it is. The first scandal that I can remember, and of course, I'm sure somebody out there will correct me. Jeannie, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, was the Ring Boy scandal. Apparently, Pat Patterson, who came out as being gay, all right, he was accused, along with a ring announcer named Mel Phillips, was accused of bringing boys in and molesting them and blah, blah, blah. I have no clue, no idea if Pat Patterson actually did anything. I did hear that he did, That's only hearsay. I don't know. But what I did know for a fact is when I was in Hamburg and Allentown, I knew Mel Phillips, and I saw him bringing young men into the dressing room. That I saw with my own eyes. Okay. What they were doing in the dressing room at the time, I didn't know. I didn't know that eventually it was going to turn into a scandal until it did. And Mel Phillips was asked to leave. He resigned or whatever. He was never brought up on charges. He was never punished, to the best of my knowledge, for anything that happened and anything that he did. And he was a very, very creepy man. He was not even a man, really. He was like a very young man, like kind of like what I would call a boy. But he was very creepy, and he didn't belong there, I don't think. He was there a lot longer than he should have been. I think 3 days there was too long for him to be there. But that's what I saw. I saw children being brought into the dressing room. Okay, and I don't know that that was a good thing. But also there was part of the documentary was that Tony Atlas had said that he was approached by Pat Patterson, which then leads me to believe that maybe the ring boy issue with Pat Patterson was true. Okay. Again, we have no proof, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to jump around a little bit because I did not put this in the correct order of the episodes, but I'm going to just jump around. I saw an interview with Hulk Hogan. He was being interviewed by Logan Paul. Now, when Hulk Hogan, you saw that on the episodes when Hulk Hogan was asked to go to court for Vince McMahon, he had told the government that he was going to tell the truth. And when he got on the bench, the chair, the whatever,
On the stand.
The stand. There you go, the stand. He lied, and he said that he never had done steroids. He never saw anything happening, whatever. Now, in this interview that I saw with Logan Paul, he's like, yeah, I never did any steroid, I never did any steroids, but you're saying that now. People who had an image of you, okay, children who had an image of you saying, say your prayers, exercise, take your vitamins, are older now, and they're seeing you joking about lying on the stand, okay? Yeah, you did do steroids, you idiot, all right? And you lied on the stand, and that is, my opinion, not cool at all. That was
Well,
wrong.
I think what he did was, and correct me if I'm wrong, what they asked him was, did Vince McMahon, I don't want to say ordered, I don't think that's the right word, but kind of make you take steroids through this doctor? And it was understood that in order to have, be Hulk Hogan, you had to look a certain way and do all that. And he said no.
Right.
So that's what he said no to. I think he did say that he had used steroids, but only a couple times. And it was like for injury or whatever, which is bullshit. But
that was bull. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's funny. My mom used to say to me, God bless my mother. My mother was so smart for having very little education in Italy. But she said to me when we were talking about wrestling, when I was just a little kid, and I would say to my mom, like if I saw a wrestler get hurt, I'd say, oh my God, I'd cry and say to my mom, they're going to be hurt. They can't wrestle. They can't wrestle. My mother would say to me, don't worry. The doctor, they give them a needle before they come out and then they're going to be okay. Not knowing that needle at that time was steroids. Okay. Yeah. And from what I understand, I've had a lot of, I guess, steroid injections, not like that, of course. I've had cortisone. It can take up to like 2 or 3 days for it to actually remedy what it's supposed to remedy. But these steroids were different,
Right.
And, she knew that they got a needle because of knowing the people in the back. She didn't know what the needle was, what it had in it. So we already knew that they were doing it back then. And like you said, no, Vince didn't come right out and say, you have to take steroids. But it's kind of like, well, you tell your child before they go to bed, well, I'd really love for you to get a good night's sleep and I'd really love for you to get a toy when you get up in the morning. But maybe, if you're a really good boy, and maybe, if you clean your room or if you do this, you're going to get a toy in the morning. Well, of course, he didn't come right out and say it. But like you said, you knew what he
Yeah.
wanted. He wanted big guys. He wanted ripped people, and of course, how do you get that way? Okay. He had this doctor on the payroll, and the doctor, he said that the doctor did all this on his own, that he sold the drugs on his own. He gave the prescriptions on his own. Well, okay, somebody who's a mastermind like Vince McMahon, you mean to tell me you don't know that this guy on your payroll is doing what he's doing? You don't check?
Nothing happened without Vince McMahon's knowledge and approval.
Thank you.
Nothing. I don't
Thank
care
you.
what it is. To who
No.
sweeps up, to who sets up the ring. Like, nothing is done without him knowing
Exactly.
every minute detail of
and how many times you go to the bathroom. Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
So he knew. He said he didn't, but he knew. And any time on that documentary that he said he didn't know something, he lied, and that was the end of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's go on to Wendy Richter right now. And like I said, we will be jumping back and forth. How he basically screwed her over. He was ready for her to lose the belt. She didn't want to lose the belt because she felt like she had more to give. And kind of like the same thing with Bret Hart when she was in the ring, the referee just did what he was told to do. It was a 1, 2, 3 real fast. Her shoulders were up or whatever. It's a done deal,
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I don't like the fact that, it happened that way. You're the boss. If you want to take somebody's belt and you're going to say you're going to drop this belt tonight, okay, I don't want to drop the belt. Well, guess what? I'm the boss. I say you're going to drop it. You either drop it like I want you to, or you're fired right now, and the belt will go up for a tournament. End of story. You didn't have to do that and embarrass somebody and screw them in the ring. I don't like it. I don't believe in it, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, I will say,
okay.
I don't know about Wendy, but like the Bret Hart thing, this Montreal screw job. Yes, he was leaving to go to WCW, and he wanted to not drop the belt to Shawn because Shawn, they hated each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'll come back, like on Monday on Raw and just give the belt up, and you guys can have a tournament or whatever. And okay, Bret, that's your opinion and you're entitled to your opinion, but that's not how the business works.
Right.
The business is, the boss says, you're not taking my belt to another company. You're going to another company. It's already out there. You're not. So this is who you're wrestling, and you got to give up the belt. And that just should have been it. So I think Bret kind of screwed Bret on that one. Because he should have. He should have. That's the business.
Yes,
that's the business.
But in the same token, okay, I think, like I said, that Vince should have just said, screw it. Give me the belt, and we'll have a tournament right now. You're no longer champion. You're fired.
Yeah, but it was a pay-per-view, a big pay-per-view,
Yeah, but look at how it ended in the long run. Yeah, but I mean, look at how it ended in the long run anyway. It still wound up, the people wound up liking what happened, but, it still wound up being a screw job no matter how you do it. And Bret said that he has never liked Vince again since. And he said that the only reason that he was doing stuff for WWE, I'm sure it was for money, of course, but he said he still never spoke to Vince after that. So, I think he had said for the longest time that he was not going to WCW. I think in his heart, he probably would not have if he wasn't put in that position to give up the belt and to treat it the way he was. He had told
that's not what happened. He was going to go to WCW. They offered him money. He went to Vince and said, look, I got this offer from WCW. What do I do? I don't want to go, but, so he gave him a contract for more money. And then, like, I forget how long, it was like maybe 6 months in or something like that. He says, look, I can't pay it. Can't afford it. We can't, so if you want to go, because I can't pay you. And so he's like, all right, well, then I guess I'm going.
Which I think was another lie. Anyway, I think he could pay it. But at that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, at
Yeah.
that time, they were losing in the ratings to WCW, so money wasn't coming in as much as it used to be.
But I think still, again, I agree with what you're saying. But I think that Vince's MO in general is to, not talk to somebody like a man. I'll just screw you behind your back, no matter what. And I don't think that that's the way to go, because he wound up doing that to a lot of people anyway, after it was all said and done.
Well, because he got away with it.
Exactly. He got away with it.
Wendy and with Brett.
Right. Well, this brings me now to Owen Hart. Okay. Now, Owen Hart, God bless him, okay, in my opinion, was one of the sweetest, kindest men I had ever met in my life. Okay. My friend Dawn was very, very, very close to Owen and his family. She was very close to his wife, very close to his children. They called her aunt. So she knew a lot. And he told her he didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do it. Again, I don't like it. I didn't want to do it. Okay. A lot of this can be only speculation, but there are some facts that we do know. Number one, he didn't want to do it. Number two, Vince wanted him to do it. Number three, he did do it. He fell and he died. Okay, these are facts that we know. All right. Now, again, my opinion, it's only my opinion. If he was so worried because Owen knew that connection was faulty, he knew it. And apparently, from what Martha says, and I don't have the letter here with me, I forgot it. But anyway, from what Martha said, Vince knew it too. He knew that the apparatus was faulty. Apparently, that apparatus was not meant to drop somebody. It was meant to drag, okay? And she claims that he was just trying to be cheap and save money, okay? So, in essence, Vince and Owen both knew that there was something wrong, okay? Because Owen actually had them refix it or redo something with it, because he could see at one point he had come down. It was on another match. And when he clicked it to take it off, it clicked too fast. And he said, I don't like this. I don't like it. Okay, this is all I'm getting from my friend Dawn. Now, what I don't understand, and this is only me, okay? And we talked about this afternoon, Jeannie, so I know what you're going to say. Quit. Don't do it. Quit. Okay. It's not like you didn't have money. It's not like another organization wouldn't pick you right up. Okay. Quit. And then go ahead and say what you told me today on the phone.
Well, because of who his family is, Stu Hart and everything, it was like, you don't quit.
Right.
If you're signed with a company, you do what they say. That's the business.
And again, like I said,
you honor your contract, you honor your dates. Yeah. And
like Glenn Osborne said to us too, he was taught you don't miss a commitment. Okay.
Right.
But my opinion is, in the same token, yeah, you made an agreement, you signed a contract, you did this, you did that. Absolutely. But when you know during this contract or during this commitment that something's wrong, in my opinion, I would have broke the contract. I would have quit. I had 2 little kids. I had 2 little babies, but as it turned out, it happened the way it did. When Martha saw the documentary, I'm not keep calling it a documentary, it's a mini series or whatever it was.
Dark Side of the Ring. Yeah.
Yeah. She was interviewed and she made these statements, and I've read it enough to remember. She said that she will always blame Vince because he knew that it was faulty. He knew, and he didn't do anything about it because he wanted to save money. Okay. And this is coming pretty much from the horse's mouth. All right. Yeah. Also, Vince said something that I didn't like. It was very disrespectful, I think. He said during the documentary about the reason why the show must go on is because it has to go on. Yeah, but he said, and it pretty much these words, if I was splattered all over the ring, I would want the show to go on too. So that was the context with which he saw that death at that moment, splattered all over the ring,
Yeah.
which in my opinion is not only cruel, it's heartless. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to let me see. All right, let's go to the Richard Belzer John Stossel thing. All right. Um I don't know the ins and outs of that. I was not there. Okay, but I do believe that those injuries didn't have to happen. I think that was just being obnoxious and rude. And you are a professional wrestler, especially with Hogan. You are a professional wrestler, okay? Unless that person agreed before you went on TV and did this. Yeah, all right, go ahead. You can do it. You can, hurt me or whatever. Do the real hold. You don't do that, especially in public, and put him in a position where they're going to fall. He fell backwards and literally cracked his head open. Okay. So he sued, and I don't blame him for suing, because how are you going to do that? As any type of an athlete has to be very careful. You're always going to get people that are going to criticize wrestling. Oh, it's fake. It's no good. You guys are all losers. You're this, you're that. But you don't. You know that all you got to do is touch somebody. You're going to wind up getting sued. Okay. So in my opinion, that was a chicken move. I mean, he should not have done that. Absolutely not, because he wound up on the short end of the stick on that one too. I think that was just wrong, and I didn't like it, and I would have done the same thing if I was Richard Belzer and John Stossel. So that's what I have to say about that. If you want to kick in any comments, Jeannie, at any time.
Well, could he have been more careful with what he did? Yes, but I don't blame him for what he did. And I actually, because back in the day, kayfabe was so real, you had to defend the business, and because it's real, it's real.
Yeah.
So anybody, you're going to say it's fake, like Dave Schultz, yeah, slap the hell out of that man. Okay, is that fake?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
And same with Hogan. Okay, here, like, you want me to put you in a hold? Okay, I'm going to put you in a hold. I think, what is it, the sleeper hold or something?
I believe it was.
And
or a headlock or something like that. Yeah, knocked him out. Yeah,
and it was, because most people are like, yeah, if it's put on the right way, two wrestlers doing it, and they're in a sleeper hold in the middle of the ring, and the ref, does the arm thing, and then on the third try, oh, he's alive, he's awake, and everything. Yeah, because they have the hold on the right way where it's not knocking them out. But you put the hold on the right way, it's going to knock you out. He put the hold on the right way.
Yep.
To prove his point. So I can't really, I don't know. I hate Hulk Hogan. I can't stand the man. Always have, always will. He skeeves me. But should he have gotten sued? Not really.
Okay. Well, this is good because we agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have done it, only because, I don't know, like I said, I told a story once when one of the Moondogs was at my house, and I told him, I joked with him about the hold too.
Yeah.
And he put it on me, and he squeezed too tight, and Dominic was ready to punch him in the face. And he yelled at him, and he says, "You don't do that." He says, "You are a wrestler. She's not. You don't do stuff like that." And again, I will still go back to what I think. I don't think he should have done it. Okay. And of course, you're entitled to what you think, and that's what makes this show good. Okay. So we're going to go from that now. We're going to go to Triple H and China. Now, I don't know how many people know this, and I don't believe it was on the series that was just on. Triple H was dating China. Okay. He was living with China, and it's been a proven fact that he cheated on China with Stephanie. Okay. Right after that happened, China lost it and started to go downhill from there. China had promised. She was happy. She was moving on. She was doing all these things. And I personally believe that because of what happened with Triple H cheating on her like that, it broke her heart. And I believe that that contributed to why she went downhill. And it also breaks my heart that she was never acknowledged for anything that she did. She was a remarkable, amazing person. I met her a couple of times just briefly. She was remarkable and she was genuine and she was kind. And, you know, people in general are just, excuse my language, are asses. Because if you look a certain way, right away, you're judged based on what you look like. And you know how they started in the beginning, oh, she's really a man, she this, she
Right.
that. And you know what? If she was really a man, that's her business. But it turns out she was not. And, you know, her heart was broken and she just, you know, wanted to do so much. She wanted to be so much. And she lost it. And then getting involved with all these other losers that she was involved with, you know, it wound up taking her life in the long run. And I'm not going to say that it's Triple H's fault that she's dead, but you know, again, I believe in shooting right from the hip. You're a man, you're a woman, whatever. Be honest. You know, you're having an affair with Stephanie McMahon or any other woman. Tell her, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm done. Don't let her find out on her own. You know, and it brings me to, you know, women that whose husbands have affairs. You know, are so quick to blame the woman, you know, like, you know, I hate her. She broke my marriage up. No, she didn't break your marriage up. He broke your marriage up. Okay. If you're going to be mad at anybody, be mad at him. Okay. Nobody twisted his arm. Nobody held him down. Nobody had a gun to his head. If he's going to tell somebody that things are, and it happened to me, I'm going to be honest with you. If you're going to be told that they're in the middle of a divorce, you're going to be told that, you know, things are never going to go back, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you're young and you get involved in that. No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's the fault of the person who is in the relationship. Take responsibility for what you did. Be a man, be a woman, just tell the truth and get over it. Okay. So I do feel bad. I love China. I really did. And I still love her. Okay. Let me go on. Let's talk about the things that I saw, okay, which is predominantly why I wanted to do this podcast. These are things that I experienced being involved in wrestling for as long as I was. I'm not going to make it's not a secret. I dated a lot of wrestlers, okay. Um, I saw a lot of stuff. Predominantly, what I saw was the pain and the torture and the things that Advil and Tylenol just don't take away. You know, these wrestlers under Vince McMahon had to wrestle literally almost every single day, okay, with no reprieve. Now you also have to understand something. Back in the day, when these wrestlers were foraging for themselves, they were finding their own rides, they were finding their own hotels, their own food, their own this, their own that. And then, you know, it started to get a little bit easier, a little bit better. But then you're in a situation where you're getting the heck beat out of you all the time. And again, like you said, kayfabe was so strong back then. There was no way in God's green earth that these wrestlers were going to ever say hello to each other, let alone help each other in public. Okay. Um, but you're talking about getting bombarded constantly. Wrestling fake, yeah, it is. But you know, your body can only take so much. Slamming, dropping, throwing. Even when you throw somebody into the ropes, and Dominic has told us that spring back that the ropes give you, that hurts. It can hurt. Okay. And do that over and over and over again, which is one of the training things that they do at the sports or at the performance center. And when you're learning at a school, one of the things you do is you run back and forth and throw yourself against the
running the
back,
ropes. Yeah.
Right, over and
And
over
most
again.
times, new students, they got black and blue marks all over their back.
Exactly.
All over.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Now, of course, it's different. They get days off thanks to Triple H and all the new people, thank God. But back then it was, you know, the attitude was You work for me. You're going to do what I say or get out. And like you had said, yeah, especially back then, they needed the money. They needed everything that they got. So they had
And if they
families.
didn't work, they didn't get paid.
Right.
And
And back,
that's another thing where because I wrote that down too. Um and I don't think it was just Vince. I think it was all wrestling promoters. If you were signed or under contract, he has you. You're not listed as a Titan Sports or WWE employee. You're an independent contractor. Therefore, no health insurance, no nothing, just a paycheck.
nothing.
And
That's right.
If you worked. So, there was no union or anything. I think somebody might have said something in one of the documentaries, that somebody had tried
That they tried to start a union.
to start a
Got
union so
squashed.
they wouldn't have to. And it got squashed
Yeah.
right away. I forget who it was that said that, but they didn't have a choice. Either they worked so they could get paid, but if they're in pain and because they tore a muscle or whatever, they had to work, so they had to take painkillers or whatever it was to be able to wrestle the next day.
Now, anybody who has known anybody in their family or their friends who has been an addict of any kind, okay? There's gambling addictions, there's alcohol addictions, drug addictions, food addictions, all kinds, okay? Anybody who knows anybody that has been an addict or is an addict of any kind, you know as well as I do, okay, that once it starts, some people have addictive personalities, some people have addictive reasons, they're depressed.
Sometimes
it's
hereditary. There's an addictive gene.
Some of it, yes, okay.
That.
So, if you give pills to somebody, okay, obviously back then they didn't know, do you have an addictive personality? Is it hereditary? Right. Will this hurt you? No. Take the pill, take the shot, go wrestle. It's like I watched the movie about Elvis Presley, and he fell, and they literally stuck his head in a bucket full of ice and water. He was unconscious. And Colonel Parker, that piece of dirt who I hate with my whole heart and soul, said, I don't care what you have to do, to the doctor that was on his payroll. That man goes into that show and he performs tonight, and I don't care. A lot of people, it's easy to say, oh, they took drugs, or he was a drug addict, he was this, he was that. But nobody stops to think about what happened for real, okay? Yes, Elvis took drugs. I mean, this is not about Elvis, but I have to say this. He took drugs. He also had a heart condition that ran in his family. He also had IBS with constipation. Trust me, I know what that's like. He also had diverticulitis and gastro issues. Trust me, I know what that's like, okay? Yeah, he did a lot of things he wasn't supposed to do. But same thing with the wrestlers. No, half of them probably would never have taken pills if the pills weren't offered to them, or if they weren't put in a situation where the pain was so bad that nothing was going to help, okay? So yeah, then a lot of them became addicts. Then you go from the pills to something else. Then you go from maybe to LSD, maybe to heroin, maybe to cocaine, maybe to crack, maybe whatever, okay? The steroids, of course, did not help when you're mixing all that stuff together. So now you become a different person, and right away it's like, well, this wrestler's an ass, because he's stupid and he's mean and he's whatever. You don't know what that person's going through. Nobody does, unless you're that person, okay?
Well, no, but if they are generally being an ass, it doesn't excuse the behavior. It might explain the behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. If you're an ass, you're an ass.
There are people who have never had a reason and are asses. That's true.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So in the same token, I have been around a lot of these people, okay, who were extreme. Jimmy Snuka, as an example, was one of them. He was an extreme addict, and anybody who says he wasn't is lying, okay? Again, I was there. I saw this man's temper was unbelievable, and it was made worse by the drugs that he took, okay? I knew Nancy, his girlfriend. I was there that weekend. No, I did not see what happened. I was there that weekend. I was friends with Nancy, and I was friends with Jimmy to a point. No, you didn't. And I don't care who you are. You knew not to mess with him at certain times. Okay. So we were at a bar. I remember going between Allentown and Hamburg. We used to go to the George Washington Motor Lodge. And I drank too. I was no saint. And we were sitting there, and Jimmy had come in, and he was really feeling it. All right. And there was a couple of girls there. Again, I don't know if you ever met them, and I'm not going to say their names, but there was a couple girls there, and there was two sisters, and the one sister was, very, very attractive and young and whatever. And she started flirting with Jimmy, just like, haha, thank you, and all that other stuff. Well, apparently he wanted more than that, and she did not want to give him more than that. He picked her up. He sat her on the jukebox in that bar. He put one hand on this side of her leg, one hand on the other side of her leg, and gave that look, that Jimmy Snuka look with the open eyes and that, and stared at her for literally over an hour, maybe two, would not let her off. Her sister kept yelling at him, and he's like, you better get away from me before I hurt you. Wouldn't help her. Nope. And the other wrestlers that were sitting there would not go help her because they were afraid of Jimmy Snuka. And a lot of them had said, no, I'm not doing anything about this. So finally he was told, we're going to call the police if you don't let her down. And then he just walked away. Didn't help her down. None of that stuff. She got down sobbing her eyes out. Okay. I was there. No, I didn't do anything to help her. I should have. But I didn't want to get my lights knocked out either because he didn't care, kayfabe or not. And I said to the bartender, I'm like, what are you going to do about this? Somebody's got to call the police. Somebody, and then, like I said, finally, him and a couple of wrestlers were like, hey, knock it off. They're going to call the cops. And then he stopped. Okay. But unless you were there and unless you saw this, you would never know it. All right. So was he capable of killing his girlfriend? Absolutely. Are most people capable of committing murder if the situation arises? Absolutely. All right. I felt so bad because, and when they said that she had hit her occipital bone, the back here, I could just see her grabbed by her face and pushed and banged her head. And, I know that he was not very kind to her. And I told her a few times, leave him, go away, stop. And she didn't. And unfortunately, again, I don't know exactly what happened, but it was horrible. It was horrible, some of the things that I've seen. Let me see.
And Vince was allegedly involved in that cover-up because I think he went to Allentown or wherever it was and showed up with a briefcase supposedly full of money.
Yep. And I was told that by another wrestler. That he was
never charged. He was never nothing. It just went away.
Never charged, never convicted, barely arrested.
It was an accidental death or whatever. Head injury, accidental head injury or whatever.
And he needed Snuka, so that wasn't going to happen. But there you go. Money talks in all aspects of life. Okay. I'm going to talk about something else that I probably shouldn't talk about, but I'm going to anyway. Those of you who do know, I dated Ivan Putski, dated Andre the Giant, again, other people, and I was with Ivan one night in the hotel, and I went to use the bathroom, and I saw in there 2 containers about this size. One had needles, one had bottles, and I said to him, what the hell is that? And he said, oh, they're not mine. They belong to somebody else. I'm holding them. And like I said today, sounded like a little kid who got caught with cigarettes, His parents are like, whose cigarettes are they? Oh, they're not mine. I'm holding them for somebody else. And that was the beginning of my not wanting to see him anymore because I knew that steroids could change your personality to a point, could make you angry, could make you, and I had enough of that in my house. I wasn't going to deal with it with people that I was going out with, So that was a big thing. And that was something that I truly experienced. I saw it. And it pissed me off. It really did, because he was, for the most part, a kind, sweet, beautiful man. To this day, I love him to death. And to this day, I know that, well, Jeannie, we both know that he cares a great deal for me
Yes.
still. Um, but that was part of the reason that I stopped seeing him. Now, Andre the Giant, this was a whole nother ball game. Poor Andre. I believe in my heart, and I've seen Andre drink. I was with him. The thing that got us together was that I had taken French in school, and I wrote him a letter one time. He was at an arena, probably the arena at Market Street in Philadelphia, and I gave it to him, and with my phone number in it. And the funny thing is that night, about 3 or 4 in the morning, the next morning, I got a phone call, and he said to me, "Do you speak French?" And I was like, "Not real. I'm learning, whatever." I was only still in high school. And he started talking to me about it and blah blah blah. And this was when he was younger and he was healthier and whatever. Um, so what happened was I started writing him letters. Like we had a base, let's say, where I could write to him, and he would get the mail wherever he was. And that's how I did it. And he'd call me and he'd say, "Well, you said this wrong, that wrong. This is fine. You did really good," or whatever. And he was, in my opinion, one of the kindest, sweetest men I had ever met in my life. Okay. And then things started to happen. All right. He had a disease called acromegaly. All right. That is something where parts of your body continue to grow. So if you notice, he had like little teeth, he had big lips, his forehead protruded, he had long, skinny arms and long, skinny legs, but he had really big hands, really big feet. You know, Now today there's surgery for that illness. Big Show, if I'm not mistaken, had that surgery because he had also the same affliction. Andre did not have it. Either it wasn't available or he didn't know about it. But
He knew about it. It was available. I remember seeing a documentary
okay,
on Andre. I think it was on HBO, and and I think it was Vince Jr. saying, "Get the surgery, prolong your life," and he refused. He was like, "Nope, this is the way God made me. It is what it
well,
is." And
I wish I had known that back then because I did not, and it broke my heart because then his back started to go. And anybody who knows anything about your spine, okay, because I have spine issues, other people do, when you are big, you either overweight or very tall, your spine is the first thing that starts to hurt because it has to do so much. So
yeah,
he had a lot of spine issues. He had other issues that were familial, here and hereditary. Um, and he was in so much pain. Okay. He didn't take drugs to the best of my knowledge, but he drank excessively. He could have a fifth of vodka with a little chaser of orange juice like this for breakfast and not even move, not even have a little buzz. And the fact that he could go through so many beers before he'd get a buzz was true. Okay. Paul and my mother and I went to Georgia with him. And it was a great ride. It was great. It was fun. And we went to wrestling and we saw the matches and blah, blah, blah. And when we went to eat, I remember this to this very day. He put the fork in his hand like this to eat, and you could not see the fork at all. Okay. He put his finger on where the teeth are to go dig it into the food, and you could barely see it. He had a ring that he always wore on his pinky. Okay. And I took that ring off and I put my fingers together, these three fingers like that. I squeezed them and I put his ring on and it went down to like my first knuckle here, all three of
wow,
my fingers. And again, he was very, very, very kind. And he told me, we had a lot of conversations, and he told me that he was so miserable. He was sad. He was miserable. And the same thing, like you said many times tonight, I have to do this. I have to do this. I can't not wrestle. And again, I felt so bad. Like, what else could he do? Go work at Walmart or McDonald's? I
right.
mean, there's nothing else somebody like him could do. Okay. And he used to tell me all the time, like in France at the time, I don't know if anything's different now, but in France at the time, um, there was no speed limit. And he used to tell me that when he did find a car that he could comfortably drive, he would drive 120 miles an hour, 130 miles an hour, as high as he could take the car. And I'd say to him, but Andre, you could get hurt. You could. No, he goes, that's the point. He goes, the point is to get killed, not to get hurt. He said, if I do it that fast and I bang into something, the chances of me dying are better. And I was like brokenhearted. I'm like, no, you can't think like that. And he didn't care. And as it turns out, when he passed away in France, in bed, the day of his father's funeral. And that was very sad to me.
Yeah.
I only saw him for 9 months because the alcohol consumption got to be too bad. And, again, I didn't want to be around that, and it broke my heart. But talking about being around that, there was a lot of girls. Like, let's go back into this a minute. The girls that went to the wrestling matches, the ones that were called ring rats, most of them were very young back then. Being 10, 15, 20 years older than a younger person was no big deal. Even today, I guess it's not a big deal. But those wrestlers were in their late 20s, early 30s at the time, maybe some close to 40, maybe 40s. And these girls were young. I mean, I started seeing wrestlers when I was 17. Okay. They were young and did not know a lot about how to handle themselves. Like they were, um, because they like somebody. It's almost like you're wrestling and you have to stay with that person. You know what I mean? And it's terrible because these girls used to bring gifts for the wrestlers. They used to pay for their food. They used to buy them clothing. They used to pay for their trans. What are you, nuts? Okay, I didn't do any of that because my mother taught me. Don't know. If it's a friend or family member and they need your help, it's one thing. But you don't do that stuff. Are you crazy? And I never did. Thank you, God. I'm going to say that right here. I was never mistreated by any of the guys, but I saw plenty. I saw plenty. I can't tell you how many times I was walking down the hallway at the Marriott Hotel and I saw doors open and girls being pushed out the door, or girls out in the hallway sitting there crying their eyes out, because they thought this wrestler liked them and they did it and they just used them and whatever. And I was like, dear God, I can't even believe this is happening. But it did. And sadly, it did to a lot of women. My friend Dawn, she will be on the show at some point, but she was very close friends with wrestlers, just like I was. Her and Tony Atlas communicate to this day. Okay. They are good friends. She's good friends with his wife, blah, blah, blah. They're very good friends. She was good friends with a lot of wrestlers because, she drove a lot of them around places, but also with her, never bought them things, never this, never that. And she was always respected because, you get treated the way you act pretty much, and back then it was no different. The guys wanted what they wanted. They if they
Well,
didn't get it
that's
from.
the thing about professional wrestling. It's a boys' club.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, it's a boys' club. Women are not respected, whether they're women wrestlers, women, managers, or fans. They are there for one purpose and one purpose only, according to the men. It's no different than the whole, in Hollywood, the casting couch. Okay,
Exactly.
it's all the same. It's all intertwined. Um, which is another reason why, when Dominic wanted to train me as a wrestler, I already knew not that Dominic was that way,
Mhm.
but that, I'm not going to get respected. I'm going to have to do things that I might not want to do, and just to be there. And no, I'm not, especially back in the 80s and further back.
Exactly.
And even, even more. I mean, look at the diva era,
Oh God. Oh
and
God, the diva era.
it just, no,
Mm-mm.
absolutely not. And another thing was, like, I know, me being, 18 years old, and uh and living at your house and whatnot, you told me on many occasions, if I ever find out, I'll kill you. Just
Exactly.
know that's the last thing you're ever going to do. And that put the fear of God in me. But
it
and
helps.
it did. And, I wanted to be friends with them and, and hang out and have drinks and, whatnot. But that would be the extent of it. And, it was, and that's, what it was.
Well, that's just like all the times, and I know you were there when all the wrestlers came to my house. I mean, I used to have this huge big table in the dining room, and I'd have like sometimes 20, 30 people there, which is
Yeah.
fine. But then it got to a point where like, I'm buying all this, I'm treating you guys, I'm feeding you. Oh, enough. All right. So finally I said to them, look, you guys got to pay. You're feeding here, you're sleeping here, whatever. Some of them started to take advantage. I nipped that right in the bud. I said, no, you're paying for it. And you know what? I never got an argument from any of them. Maybe Larry Winters, no, but I'm only kidding. But I never got an argument from anyone. They coughed up money like it was water. Here, we want to eat your food, just cook it,
Yeah.
And that showed me respect, because you are treated the way you treat yourself. You're treated the way you demand to be treated. And you know what? Sometimes if you demand to be treated well and you're not treated well, then you have to make that decision to walk away and not have what you thought you were going to have.
Right.
Same thing with the women. Remember during the Divas era and the Attitude Era, how many divas were kicked in the face, punched, body slammed by the men? There was a time when the women were just beat like they were just a man. They were part of the ring. Now today that doesn't happen, because you can't do that. Today's world, everything's different. But back then, look at the Moolah. The Moolah wrestled men. China wrestled men. Okay, not today. It's not going to happen. I don't ever see it happening today. Only because, like I said, in the world that we're living in today, and plus, it's not right. It's not right to beat up somebody or wrestle or whatever it is you're doing to somebody that's a half your size, or more than half your size.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
That's okay.
There's a lot of indie wrestling that they do the intergender, and if the girl can hang, if she's a good wrestler and she can take a hit and she can give a hit and it's not, something weak looking or whatever, I'm all for it. It's because there was one female wrestler in ECWA, and she wrestled Erica something. I can't think of her. I didn't like her gimmick, but she was a great wrestler, and she used to wrestle men all the time and won a championship, like the men's championship, and she deserved it, and she could take a beating. And I mean, they weren't, blooding her nose or anything like that, but
no, but I'm talking about like when the girls really weren't supposed to be wrestling, like all the times that Steve Austin gave stunners to like all these women, even
yeah, but they were trained for that. They did that.
I know, but I still think it gave a bad persona. It really did. It showed disrespect for women, and I will always think that, always. Now let's get in. Speaking of Steve Austin, okay, let's talk a little bit about when I said that I've seen and you've seen, we've both seen the damage, the hurt that these wrestlers go through. Steve Austin said he's not a CTE guy. He doesn't believe it. Okay, now CTE is that thing that happens to your head, from brain, constantly, your brain damage, from constantly getting hit in the head or falling or whatever. When Chris Benoit's father let them analyze his brain when he died, they were surprised as hell as what they found in there. Okay. Now, Steve said that he only got hurt one time. He said in the documentary that it was Owen's move. Okay. That wasn't Owen's move. What happened was, in the back, they were talking about what was going to happen. It was either going to be a tombstone or that one where they pick you up and then they sit down and you do that. There's two positions your head has to be in. One of them, your head can be down further. The other one, your head has to be up higher. Well, they confused that. They didn't come up with an actual plan. Okay. And what happened was when they went in the ring, Steve Austin thought he was going to get the tombstone, but in reality, he got the thing, and I forget what it's called, where you just jump up and land on your butt, and that's how his head got hurt. He got hit, his whole spine was moved up, okay? He lost feeling in his arms, he lost feeling in his legs, and even through all that, okay, Owen was told when he was at the ropes, he was told what happened. The referee told him. And that's when he let Steve Austin, he fell and let Steve Austin pin him, okay? But that is crap, okay? He did not have a move that he did on everybody. He didn't, not that night. And, you know, I don't understand whether Steve was just kayfabing it or whether he was just saying that to protect Vince. I don't know. But that is definitely a thing. Your brain is definitely messed up, period. Now, speaking
Well,
of...
I get kind of, I don't agree, but I get what he was saying. That if you do, there's a way wrestlers do moves that you're not going to get yourself hurt. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're taking a chair shot to the head, you know, every night, you're going to get a concussion. You're going to. And Chris Benoit's move was like the flying headbutt. And he would, I mean, you know, and he said, well, you know, if you do it right, you're not going to get hurt. How do you do it wrong? How do you, without not actually hitting it, because you're flying in the air? I can understand if you're just standing there and you just go boom, okay, you do it light enough, it's not going to do anything. But well, of course it's going to get hurt.
He was supposed, when he fell, he was supposed to have his arms underneath him, land on his arms and just tap the head kind of thing, okay?
No, I understand that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Chris Benoit's CTE.
Oh, yeah.
Because Austin was saying that he don't believe in CTE because if you do it right, you're not going to have any. Well, Chris Benoit was a flying headbutt. Yes, you're going to get concussions from that.
Right.
And again, with the scan, it's there. It's there.
Right. And see, at the same token, though, he did it right sometimes. Sometimes he didn't do it right. But again, think about it. You have management. Management can see that. Look at everything they do today. They can tell, like you said, nothing happens without Vince knowing it. Don't tell me that Vince didn't know that he was hurting himself. Okay? Don't tell me that Vince didn't know that something was going wrong, but just let it keep going on because Chris Benoit was this energetic nut that wanted to just keep wrestling. Okay? So as it turns out, all right, you hear this thing that Chris Benoit and his wife and son are dead. The WWE does this, tribute.
Yeah.
When they found out a couple days later, the next day, whatever it was, that Chris Benoit had murdered his family and committed suicide, they took everything off. Mm-hmm. They took all his pictures, all his paraphernalia, all his merch, everything off, and treated him like he did not exist. Yeah. That I don't agree with. I'm sorry. Because if they had looked into a lot of things with a lot of these wrestlers, maybe, just maybe, it might not have happened. Now, there's a lot of stories that you're going to hear or we heard about how it happened, what happened, okay? In reality, apparently he had texted certain people and he had said to them, the dogs are locked up. The dogs are next door. They're in the yard or whatever. Okay, random. That was a random text, okay? Maybe that was his call for help. Maybe that was his way of saying the dogs are locked up. So if you come here, they're not going to attack you. They're not able to. They're locked up. All right. There's a lot of speculation on what actually did happen or how it happened. Okay. We will never know 100% what happened. The only people who are ever going to know what actually happened is Chris Benoit. Not even the other two, just Chris Benoit, because he did it. Now, it's been known, okay, that when they did autopsies and everything, that he had already been giving his son growth hormones because he didn't want his son to end up with the same shortness that he had, which I think was hereditary, okay? So he had already been given his son drugs. Now, again, I am going to speculate. I'm going to say what was told to me. I am not going to say that I saw it. I'm not going to say this is exactly what happened. But I think you, Jeannie, may remember this story as it was told. Okay. Apparently, because of the steroids, the drugs, the CTE, all that, he had been drinking and he went nuts. He and Nancy got into an argument. Apparently, it became violent and he killed her. Okay. So I think personally, all along, he had wanted to do this. He had not wanted to live anyway for a long time. And he looked at his little boy and he's like, oh, I don't want him to wake up tomorrow and see that his mother's dead, that I killed her. So he took the little boy's life and then took his own. Again, that was what was told to me by somebody. I don't know if it's true. I'm not saying that it's true or not true. I get it that it could be true. I get the possibility that it could be true. But it had a lot to do with the conditions that he was wrestling under, with the demands. And you have to have a perfect body. And you have to have this. I'm so grateful that today a lot of wrestlers are not built like that. That stipulation isn't there anymore. That you have to be 8 feet tall and 500 pounds of solid muscle. I think putting that demand on people back then was not necessarily what was needed in the business. I think it's just what Vince liked. He liked that kind of persona in a man. He thought that it made you look big, manly, whatever. I mean, he did steroids himself, okay, and denied it. All right. It breaks my heart because of what happened to Chris Benoit and his family.
Well, another thing, I mean, a lot of it, and this is just my opinion. Again, I think the CTE was the main factor because he was brain damaged,
right,
severely brain damaged.
Right.
Then you factor in the drugs. And then the other thing, and I remember watching, I forget if it was a documentary on Chris Benoit or if it was a documentary on Eddie Guerrero, but Eddie and him were like brothers, best friends. And when Absolutely Eddie died, right. He did not handle it well at all.
You're right.
Was
You're absolutely right.
Devastated. So that, and this happened after Eddie died.
Yes.
Obviously. I don't remember how long after he died, but I would guess within a year that it happened. And so I think between those three contributing, that's he went crazy. Yeah,
he did. And I think that in hindsight, he didn't want to be without his family. He didn't want to leave them behind. And he worried about his son and the criticism and ridicule that he would probably encounter as he grew and didn't grow. Okay. Yeah. So he went through a very, very tedious time himself in his life, and it's sad. And I honestly don't think that it should have been that he never existed after that. I really don't. I think some sympathy still needed to be there because then you'd have to admit though that it might have something to do with wrestling or something to do with the strong, very strong pressure that all these guys are under, and even women. Now we're going to go from him to Ashley Massaro. We talked about her. She was a wrestler. She committed suicide. And she had said that when she was in Kuwait, if I'm not mistaken, she was raped while she was in Kuwait. It was kind of poo-pooed. Nobody, gave two shits, in all fairness. Well, you were raped. Do something about it. Then she accused Vince of making passes at her. When she refused, he ridiculed her, embarrassed her, messed up her matches, and she just couldn't do it anymore. And I think that was a big contributing factor to her committing suicide as well. It's when you have something you love, something that your life is in some people, their career is all they have. And, clearly it meant a lot to her. And it's so sad that this stuff has to happen for these various reasons. And then after that, all this other stuff started to come up. And if you notice, they did say that he canceled the last interview because after all this stuff started to come up about the girl in his office and about Brock Lesnar and about what Vince did to her and blah, 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 and all this stuff. Now, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get how this perversion can go on like this and you still have a multi-million dollar company, billion-dollar company. You already have what you want. The people love you. The wrestlers do whatever you say. You have a ton of money. You're built like a brick shit house and you're still a pervert. Like, why? Okay. He wanted,
Because he can.
well,
He's
yeah.
narcissistic.
Yeah.
He's Mr. McMahon, and he can do whatever he wants to whoever he wants for his own sick enjoyment and pleasure. And
Well, he was going to do that to his own daughter. One of the shticks he wanted to do was he wanted Stephanie to pretend to be pregnant with his child. Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
His child. Thank God she finally said no. That wasn't happening. Okay. And, he wanted to also, when her and Triple H got married, he wanted to do something, have them get married in the ring and have it destroyed and messed up. And she was like, no. He seriously, we talked about this today too. He seriously blurred the lines a lot between reality and fantasy, reality and wrestling, reality and perversion. He didn't care. He didn't care what he did, how much it hurt, what happened to you. And he said it in the series. Get over it. F the people, F everybody, get over it. Get up, brush yourself off, and keep going. Okay, yeah, that sounds really good if that's what you can do. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
You can't expect people to just get up after some of that kind of trauma, after being beaten, after being sexually assaulted, after being almost technically forced to take steroids, after having all this crap going through your body, after being judged every single day, after working 365 days a year, after all this. How do you expect people like going through that to just get up, brush themselves off, and go on? You can't put your opinions, your feelings, your way of handling things and forcing somebody else to handle it or do it the same way. It's just not right. And he had children. You have children. I have children. Okay. To force somebody, especially a child, to move on because you want them to, it's not possible for everybody to just do that. Okay. So he is with these wrestlers who have families, who really didn't want to do anything else because they loved it so much. And a lot of them, like Andre the Giant, really couldn't do anything else. You got them basically by the what, and you're twisting them a little bit and you're saying, well, this is what I want, do it or get out. Well, those are your two options. So 8 out of 10 times, like you said, you're going to do it. And whatever happens, happens. And that's the sad part, because a lot of these people wound up with whatever happens, happens. And a lot of the wrestlers from back then, because there was no pension, because there was no 401k, there was no health insurance, there was no life insurance, there was nothing. I don't know what they have today, but I know back then they did not. Why do you think there's a cauliflower alley? Okay. These wrestlers are destitute. They're broke. They have nothing. They gave everything, every blood, every sweat, every tear to this place, and this place gave them nothing in return. Nothing.
And agreed. And I think that to be fair, a lot of that's just the way the wrestling business is. I don't care if it's in Canada or Puerto Rico or Japan or anywhere in the United States. That's the business. That's the business. And is it better now? Yeah, I guess. And I guess the one thing that Vince did do, okay, he didn't give them, 401k or, health insurance, but the main roster, did get paychecks as long as they worked. And they did get merchandising, a percentage of the merchandising, not 100%, but they did get a nice chunk. So if they sold t-shirts or whatever, they would get that as part of their income. Of course, if they didn't sell, then you're not getting anything.
Yeah.
But at least it gave them the opportunity to sell, some stuff, posters, and whatever.
And you also got to be grateful because he paid for a lot of their funerals.
Yeah. And supposedly he also, after the whole drug scandal, he did start paying for guys who were addicted to drugs, their rehab.
Yes, he did do that.
Pay for that. That was, I think he started that late 90s, early 2000s. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it worked for a while, and then they would relapse, and then
right. And he also, at one point, to be fair, like you said, as he got more and more wealthy, he did pay for some of their surgeries. He did start paying for their surgeries, but like you said, mostly just the main roster. So, like,
right.
If you were like, Joe Blow from Windy City and you got hurt, it'd be like, sorry about that. But the John Cena's, the Hulk Hogan's, the Roman Reigns's, the whatever, and now the pressure isn't so bad on them either. Like now, as an example, Roman Reigns, God bless him, he has leukemia. He has it all the time. He has to take medication. He has to train a certain way now. He has to do stuff every day. So you're not going to see him working 365 days a year. Back in the day, I don't know what would have happened to him. Today, they are more lenient. They are more helpful. They are kinder. But back in the day, who knows if he would have even made it as a wrestler with all his problems. Okay.
Right.
And like even with somebody like Mick Foley, Mick Foley, God bless him, he went through hell and back again. Okay. I don't know what was taken care of for him or what wasn't. I haven't had a chance to talk to him about all that. But again, like he said, somebody just starting out, and you get a break, you're going to jump right on top of that and do the best you can.
Yeah.
Back then they didn't know. Today everything is more educated. Today everything is more knowledgeable with the internet and all this. There's like stuff all over the place. You can't mess up at all, But I mean, you can, but But then going back to what it was like in the day, these people just did what they could do to feed their families. And,
well, that's like there's a couple really young guys in the indie circuit, and they do the the hardcore death matches and stuff like that with barbed wire bats and
right,
all this stuff. And I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, I don't understand. Like, do you know how much pain you're going to be in? 20 years from now, it's not going to, or even it could, God forbid something happen, or anything. Look at Abby,
Oh,
but
God bless him.
It's just, and as much as, I love, the TWA guys, they did that hardcore and would bleed and stuff like that. And back in the day, like now I'm looking at them, and because you see them and, they got arthritis throughout the body. They got this, they got that. And it's just like, it's just not worth it.
No, it's not. And I can tell you something from somebody who has arthritis. God, it sounds like I have everything, but I'm really doing okay. I just found out from Dr. Paslaris, thank God, that my heart is good. So I'm grateful for that.
Yay!
But anyway, if you do have arthritis, just the weather change can rip you apart. It really can. The barometric pressure is a real thing, and it does really affect your body. Imagine these poor guys and girls that have killed themselves over the years with no help, with, like you said, with no life insurance or hospitalization, with no real medicine. And the medical knowledge wasn't the way it is now back then either. Imagine what they had to go through. And it's so sad that a lot of these people, like I was talking to Joel, and Bay, And we were talking about some of the previous wrestlers that he had when he had his TWA and all that. Everybody's different now. Everybody's older. But a lot of the wrestlers that he was talking to, some of them are, this hurts, that hurts. I just had this surgery, that surgery. Look at Tom Brandy. Just had a hip replacement. He never did hardcore, that as far as I know, like that stuff. But it still plays games with you. It still wreaks havoc
It's
on
still
your
30
body.
years of wrestling and taking body slams and
Exactly.
whatever.
It does. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I like I get really angry sometimes when I think about what it was like back then and how badly these wrestlers were not taken care of. And I'm going to tell you one more thing. I'm not going to mention his name right now, only because of the fact that, God willing, he will be on our podcast one day. So I don't, but it's a fact. I have a friend named Nancy, and she and I, years ago, where the airport had a hotel, and it was called the Airport Hotel. And that's where all of us went, and we hung out there at that bar. It wasn't the Marriott. We didn't go to the Marriott till years later. But we were all at the Airport Hotel, and this wrestler was in there with us. We were laughing, joking, blah, blah, blah. Jeannie, I'm telling you, within 10 minutes, no word of lie, he had poured, we were just sitting there like we didn't even notice it. He just got a mouthful of pills, a bottle of something, a sip of vodka, whatever he was drinking at the time. And he literally in minutes went from like this to like, my friend and I had to literally walk him with his arms around both of us to his room. Okay. We had to take, his shirt and stuff off, lay him in bed, cover him up, and get something that he needed out of his bag. When we opened his bag, that bag was filled, and I'm telling you, filled with enhancement drugs and a ton, and I tell you, a ton of money. Okay. We could have so easily taken that money and gone, and he never would have known. He wouldn't have remembered. He did remember, afterwards that he saw us and we were together that night. He didn't remember that we had to take him to his room. He didn't remember that we had to put him to bed. And I said to him, you had a bag full of money and other junk. He goes, yeah, I know. And I said, do you realize we could have stolen that from you? He goes, oh my God, but you wouldn't do that, would you? I said, no, but you're lucky that it was us. What if it was one of these other people? Or some people that don't care or don't consider you a friend? Then what? He's like, yeah, oh my God, yeah. I said, yeah, nothing. Stop it. And again, that's easier said than done. You can say stop it to anybody. Whether they do or don't, that's on them. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have anything else here. Nope, I think we covered everything. Is there anything else you want to add, Jeannie?
Just that in my opinion, Vince McMahon is just evil. And the character and the human are one and the same. And
I believe that.
Even, because he put out that statement before it actually aired saying that, oh, the producers got it wrong. They're confusing Mr. McMahon with me, the human. It's like,
he said he didn't even know. He didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
He said that plain. And I believe that. I believe that he doesn't even know who he is. And I believe that his mind, because of all the trauma that he went through as a child, okay, give him that. But his mind was always looking for the next big thing. And he didn't care how he got it. That's the part that's bad. He didn't care who he hurt. He didn't care who he stepped on. He didn't care who he approached in a very inappropriate way. He didn't care about any of this. He didn't care. And then supposedly the one woman that he had paid, $3 million in hush money, he decided one day to stop paying her. So that's why she brought that another thing that wasn't the Janet one, it's the other one. She brought it to court. Well, how are you going to make an agreement? You're going to pay somebody so much money to keep them quiet, and all of a sudden you're going to say, well, yeah, I don't want to pay anymore. But you still have to be quiet. That's not how it works, you know? And, and in all fairness, and I got to be very honest, a lot of times these people who abuse other people, whether it's men abusing women, women abusing men, grown-ups abusing children, okay? My thing is, okay, first of all, it is so wrong, Okay, your tongue ought to literally fall out of your mouth just for thinking it. Number one, but number two, okay, where do you get off? Whether it's the man, the woman, anybody, where do you get off thinking that you are this perfect, gorgeous, wonderful being that you deserve to take what you want from somebody else? Who the hell are you? Where do you get off thinking that you deserve this? Which is like the Vince McMahons and the wrestlers and the Ring Boy Club and all that. What gives you? And I know there's sick people in the world. I know it's what you're going to say, but where do you get off? It's like these men or women that are on these dating sites, and it's like, well, I want somebody who's beautiful, who's got long hair, who's built like a brick shit house, who this, who that. But this guy has no teeth. He's got a beer belly. He's going bald. And the same thing with a woman doing that to a guy. Where do you get off being that judgmental? And instead of looking for kindness and good stuff, where do these people get off that they can just take what they want from anybody?
Well, that's just human nature. You're attracted to who you're attracted to.
But I'm talking about forcibly taking it. That's what I'm talking about. Like what these people.
Well, that's all their own kind of insecurities, and in my opinion, I mean, look at the only person I can think of right now is Harvey Weinstein, or what's his name, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, whatever he calls himself. They're in a place of power. They have no respect for women whatsoever. They're misogynistic, and they honestly believe that women are put on this earth are beneath them, and that they can do whatever they want to them, and they're going to get away with it. And especially because they've gotten away with it for hundreds of years. Let's face it.
Yeah. They think they have the right. They have the right.
They have the right because they hate women.
And I think a lot of them hate themselves too.
And they do. They do, because they know that, let's face it, women are better than men. So let's just say they know that deep down, and they don't like that. So they have to force their will in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And then there are women who, there are women like the ring rats or the groupies or whatever you want to call them, that they're not being forced. They're not being raped. They're not being, beat up or anything.
No, but they're being embarrassed.
But they're being used.
Humiliated, yeah.
And they don't mind it.
Yep.
And, you do you, boo, whatever.
Exactly.
That's what you want to do. If it makes you feel good that you slept with, Mr. Celebrity, whatever. But then
to know that Mr. Celebrity doesn't know you from Adam and never will know you from Adam.
Right.
How many times people like Owen Hart, who was one of the few wrestlers back then who never cheated on his wife, ever, okay? How many times he was ridiculed and he was made fun of and he was insulted because he was that word, how you going to, because he respects his wife, he respects his family, you're going to make fun of him for not cheating? Oh, look at that thing over there, you can have her. No, I don't want her. Guess what? I have a family. I have people that actually love me, and I love them. You want her, you can have her. Or in that case, you want him, you can have him. But I mean, ew, like I can't. And I got to be honest, I'm so grateful that I never went through that in the wrestling world. And I'm grateful to my mother, because God rest her soul. If it wasn't for her threatening the hell out of me, I might have been one of those people. And like I said, the story goes with Dominic too. One time he used to always call me kid. And one time he said to me in Hamburg, "Hey kid, go get me coffee." I said, "Hey Dominic, kiss my butt, go get your own coffee." I said, "And by the way, I'll get you coffee, but you're buying me coffee and you're paying for it." And that's what he did. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't let people treat you that way. And like I said, sometimes when you don't let people treat you that way, you have to accept the fact that you're going to do without. And oh well, that's the time when I say, oh well, because you know what? I'd rather do without than do that. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
But anyway, I could go on babbling all night, and then I'd wind up switching from topic to topic. But anyway, I'm hoping that everybody who listens finds some comfort in the fact that we were as honest as we could be, and that they got a little bit of inside information that maybe they didn't have before, a little bit of knowledge from people that were actually there at some point. Okay. I hope we hear from people, to let us know if you liked it or not. And that's it. I think this was something we had to do, and I'm glad we did it. And don't forget, this coming Saturday, we're going to have Bay Ragney on. He's going to make special announcements, and we are honored because all the announcements coming up for Joel's show are all going to be on our show first. No one else will be allowed to air anything until we air it, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful to Joel. I'm grateful to Bay. I'm so grateful for that because that's helping us, with our podcast get along a little bit more. So also, please sign the petition. Have a friend sign it, okay? If you listen to the podcast, have a friend listen because maybe it's not so bad. Maybe we have a good podcast once in a while, Anyway, we hope that you enjoyed the show. We hope that you liked it. I always call this a show. I know it's not a show. It's a podcast, but whatever. We will be here Saturday. This show will drop tonight. As soon as we get done, I'm going to fix it. It's going to drop. Saturdays will drop, probably in the afternoon or late morning. But just wanted to say thank you to everybody for listening. If you have any questions, feel free for Jeannie or myself at 316carmela@gmail.com. Jeannie, do you have anything closing to say?
No, that is it. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and go Phillies. They're going to lose. They're playing right now. I'm sure they're going to lose, but whatever.
All right. Well, let's say go Eagles because they didn't really start yet. So we'll say go Eagles.
Well, they don't play till Sunday, so.
Well, but I mean, they're still early in the season. The Phillies are almost done, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the Eagles are just starting up. So let's go Eagles. If the Phillies don't make it, let's go Phillies. But I'll tell you one thing about Philly fans, and I'm a Philly fan. One thing about Philly fans, we do not give up on our teams. Even if they suck, even if they lose, whatever, the next year it's rah-rah all over again. We do not give up on our teams. Philly is hardcore with everything that it does, in my opinion. And yes, I'm from Philly, and I will always be from Philly. But in any event, we love you guys. Thank you so much for being here and listening to us. Jeannie, I love you.
Oh, and really quick, I love you too. No, because I posted on my Facebook, let's go Phillies or whatever for yesterday's game, and they lost. And Mr. Davey O'Hannon apparently is a New York Mets fan. So needless to say, he was like, I guess they're not going to win. And I guess, kind of giving me some jabs. And then, and just because I'm sure, Davey, you're listening, don't make me body slam you. Okay? I'm just saying. Don't mess with my Phillies.
Make sure. I'm going to send this to him. I'm going to make sure I send it.
Don't mess with my Phillies because, I can mess with them, but you cannot.
That's it.
You cannot.
That's like they say.
I love you, baby. You're my boy. But don't mess with my Phillies.
Not happening. Not happening, Davey.
Especially against the freaking Mets. I hate that. Anyway. Not as much as the Skankies, but yeah.
Oh my God! There she goes. She's hardcore Philly, people. Let me tell you. Yeah, you don't get much more hardcore than Jeannie. I'm going to tell you that honestly. Yeah. But anyway, we love you.
Yes.
Keep in touch, and we'll see you on Saturday.
Great.
Love you,
Bye.
Jeannie. Bye. Bye.